All right, today we're going to talk about an event that lasted, well, just a few heartbeats, but it completely, and I mean completely, reshaped human history. The very first powered flight. And this wasn't just about getting a machine off the ground. It was really the tiny seed from which our entire modern connected world grew.
So just think about that for a second. How long does a revolution take? Years? Decades? What if I told you that the entire aviation age, the very foundation of our global society, got its start in about the time it takes to tie your shoes?
Yep, that's it, 12 seconds. On the morning of December 17th, 1903, two brothers somehow managed to convince a machine made of wood and fabric, a machine that was heavier than air, to lift itself up, fly under its own power, and then land safely. It's an almost unbelievably small amount of time for something that would literally shatter the world as we knew it. So who are these guys, and how in the world did they pull it off?
Well, the story doesn't begin where you might think. Not in some fancy government lab or university. Nope, it begins with two bicycle mechanics from Ohio, Orville and Wilbur Wright, who were just completely and utterly obsessed with solving a problem that had stumped the greatest minds for centuries.
Okay, so let's paint a picture of the scene. This was not some big, grand spectacle. We're talking Kill Devil Hills, North Carolina. It's the middle of winter, so it's cold, it's windy, and it is totally desolate. I mean, it's the perfect place to change the world if you really don't want anyone watching you. You can just feel the isolation, can't you? There are no runways, no hangars, not a soul in sight to form an audience. It's just two brothers, their kind of strange-looking machine, and the raw elements. But that's exactly why they chose this spot. They needed those constant strong winds for lift and the soft sand for the inevitable crash landings. It was their own private natural laboratory, miles from anywhere. And here is the absolutely crucial point. See, people had been up in the air before, right? In balloons and gliders. But the Wrights weren't just trying to get airborne. Their obsession, the thing that set them apart, was controlled flight. The ability to actually pilot a machine, to tell it where to go, and to keep it from tumbling out of the sky. And this really spells out the difference. All those previous attempts, they were basically about floating or gliding, or, as someone cleverly put it, falling with style. The Wright brothers were shooting for something brand new, flight that was sustained, self-propelled, and, most importantly, fully controlled. That right there, that was the whole ballgame. So everything builds to this one pivotal moment. Let's dive into the main event, the minute-by-minute drama of the day that changed everything. And let me tell you, the conditions were tough. The wind was gusting up to 27 miles per hour. That is a seriously brisk, biting wind. Here's the thing. Too little wind and they couldn't get enough lift to take off. Too much wind and they'd lose control in a heartbeat. They were walking a real tightrope. Okay, so it's 10:35 a.m. Orville's at the controls. The Wright flyer slides down its little launching rail, lifts, and it's in the air. It stays there for 12 seconds, covering about 120 feet. They did it. They actually did it. But they weren't done, not by a long shot. They made 3 more flights that day. And the final one, with Wilbur at the helm, lasted an incredible 59 seconds and went 852 feet. Just look at that jump in progress. Now, let's be real about that first flight. It was wobbly, it was super short, it was anything but graceful. But it was everything it needed to be. It was sustained, it was powered by its own engine, and, critically, it was controlled by the pilot. And just like that, history was made. And then, bam, a dose of reality hits. Right after their greatest triumph, a huge gust of wind just grabs the flyer while it's sitting on the sand, flipping it over and over. It was damaged so badly they couldn't fly again that day. I mean, think about that. They achieved the impossible, and just moments later, they almost lose the very machine that did it. So that begs the question, right? Why them? Why did this attempt work when so many brilliant people before them had failed? What was their secret sauce? Well, it really boiled down to 3 essential ingredients that the Wright brothers, unlike everyone else, finally figured out how to put together. Okay, so first up, power. They couldn't just go out and buy an engine that was light enough and powerful enough. It didn't exist. So what they do? They designed and built their own, an absolute marvel for its time. Second, lift. Their wings weren't just flat boards. They were carefully curved, based on experiments in their own homemade wind tunnel. They actually discovered that a lot of the existing scientific data was just plain wrong. And third, And this was the real stroke of genius: control. They developed an amazing system that let the pilot warp the ends of the wings and turn the rudder at the same time, basically balancing the plane in the air just like a bird does. See, other inventors had focused on maybe one or two of these things, but the Wrights knew you needed the whole shebang. All three working together, that was their genius.
So you see, those 12 seconds, that wasn't the end of the story. No way. It was just the very, very beginning. The success on that cold beach kicked off a chain reaction that is still going strong today.
And I love this way of thinking about it. That short little hop was like the first message ever sent on the internet. You know, that first hello. It was brief, and to an outsider, maybe it didn't look like much. But what it did was prove that the technology worked. It was proof that a whole new era of connection was actually possible. And just consider the domino effect. You can literally draw a straight line from that one 12-second flight to the world we live in now. A world of global travel, international trade, life-saving rescues, and yeah, even space exploration. Every bit of it stands on the shoulders of that first fragile flight. And just to put this into perspective for you, that first historic flight at 120 feet wouldn't have even crossed an American football field. But by the end of that same day, their fourth flight covered nearly 3 football fields. The learning curve in just a few hours was absolutely staggering. So think about that journey. We start in one place, with 2 brothers, a homemade machine of wood and cloth, and a tiny 12-second hop on a cold, windy beach. And we end up here, with a sky crisscrossed by airplanes, connecting continents, cultures, and economies in ways that Wilbur and Orville themselves probably couldn't have even dreamed of.
So I'll just leave you with this question. If you were standing there on that sand dune, watching that shaky little machine fight the wind for just 12 seconds, would you have seen the future taking off? Or would you have just seen a couple of determined guys with a crazy, impossible dream? It's just an amazing reminder, isn't it, that sometimes the biggest changes have the very smallest beginnings. Thanks for diving into this with me.